fine. Take your time. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. I am Christy Malloyd. I am the Voter Services Chair for the League of Women Voters of Lafayette, and we're so pleased to have you here this evening. The League of Women Voters was established in 1920. We've been active for a few decades here in Lafayette, and we are a nonprofit and nonpartisan organization. We do not endorse candidates, nor do we endorse political parties. The purpose of the League is to help our citizenry and our residents be informed about candidates, about political issues, and about the policies that are affecting us day to day. Our membership is open to all men and women and anyone over the age of 16 and up. First, before we start our forum, I want to do just a little bit of housekeeping. If everybody could please just check your phone to make sure that it is on silent, we'd appreciate that. Our forum is going to last for 1 hour this evening. All of the questions that we are going to ask here tonight are going to be new to the candidates. They have not received these in advance. Our process will be to give the questions to candidates in turn. We're going to go by district to begin with, so we'll start with District 44 and then go to District 45, and we'll go in alphabetical order by last name, and then we'll take it in turn. So we'll start with Mr. Timmy Chasson on the first round, and then we'll keep going down the road and back again. For each candidate, we will have 1 minute for opening remarks, and we'll have 1 minute for closing remarks. We'll also have a series of questions. These have been solicited by our membership, and each candidate will have up to 1 minute to answer those questions. We have one of our members, Ms. Deborah Ami, who's sitting out in the audience. She is our timekeeper. Do not mess with her. She will keep you on schedule. We have all three of our...
I've been here ever since. I've practiced dentistry since 1975 here. My kids went to Lafayette High. Helen taught at Lafayette High. Our grandkids go to Lafayette High. When I decided to run for office, I got some advice. The first advice was change the end of your name from a D to an R. And I said, well, why would I do that? Because I would be lying to people right off the bat, and that's not who I am. Secondly, the second suggestion I got was you need money. That's how you're going to win the race. And I said to myself, well, I'm not going to do it the traditional way. I'm not going to buy the election. If I can't win it by respect or on my own merits, then I don't want to be there. The third thing was that we've gotten a lot of surveys, asked a lot of questions, all kind of special interest groups, and the only special interest group that I didn't hear about was families. That's why I'm running, is because of families. I have no reason to go to Baton Rouge unless I can represent families and make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you. As I mentioned, since Mr. Brockmeyers wasn't able to be here, I'm going to read a short statement that he sent us in his absence. He says, "Thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting tonight's candidate forum. You have a long history of fostering public awareness and engagement in our political process, and I'm grateful you're continuing that important mission in this race. I apologize that I'm unable to be there in person this evening, and I regret missing this opportunity to share my message and to meet my fellow candidates for the seat in person. I'm Brock Myers, a Republican candidate for House District 45. I'm a husband, a father, business and civic leader running to serve as Lafayette's voice at the state capitol. I'm a senior vice president of corporate development and healthcare and help my family grow its small rural home healthcare business to one of the largest in the country. My family has found success right here in Acadiana through hard work, innovation, and tenacity. I'm running for the seat to help ensure the same opportunity is there for the next generation of doers. I invite you to visit my campaign website to learn more about me and my campaign, brockmyers.com. It's no substitute for a live forum, but it will hopefully answer your questions and help you get to know me a bit more. Thank you, and best of luck to my fellow candidates." We thank him for sending in that introduction. Now on to our questions for this evening. And we are going to begin with District 44, Mr. Pat Lewis. This first question will go to you, and then we'll go down the row and back to Mr. Chasson, who will answer the last. Our first question of the evening. Extreme weather is on the rise around the world, from hurricanes to floods to wildfires to droughts. What should Louisiana be doing to help residents prepare for and cope with these kinds of disasters? Mr. Lewis.
Thank you for the question. What Louisiana should be doing, we live on the coast, right there on the coast. When the weather is coming, when hurricanes are coming to Lafayette, or normally they go from New Iberia or somewhere in the coast, then there's a lot of wind and rain, and there's a lot of trees that people are complaining that right now as we speak, and there's trees are falling down without bad weather because it's hot, real hot. In fact, a couple of days ago, I had a tree fell on one of my rental properties just because it was dry and hot. But again, what we should be doing is preparing ourselves as far as maybe cutting some of these trees that are really susceptible to the weather, the elements that happens, right? Then also what we should be doing is preparing ourselves by getting sandbags, because we know that that flooding is coming because we are on a low-lying area. Then also we should be trying to get some, in Baton Rouge, that's what I would do, advocate for our insurance company to insure our homes, because a lot of people that cannot get insurance if they're homeowners. We cannot get insurance. The insurance is so expensive, so we need to do something like that to prepare ourselves for when we can go back to our home, if we can go back to our home. So that's what we need to do. Oh, time out, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. And the question goes next to Mr. Martinez.
Sure, can you repeat the question, please?
Yes. Extreme weather is on the rise around the world, from hurricanes to floods to wildfires to droughts. What should Louisiana be doing to help residents prepare for and cope with these kinds of disasters?
I think we can look at really the past 5 or 6 years within our state, and I'm quite sure we've pretty much had all of those that have come right here into our own state of Louisiana. First, we need resources. We need to provide resources to our emergency management and ensuring that we have logistics strategically located throughout the state that we can respond to whatever disaster is before us at that time, because we know that they're coming. Just like Mr. Lewis mentioned, I think insurance rates are something that's important for us to look at. We know that it's a critical issue right now in our state. So from that, we also, I want to make sure that our families have the resources at home, and we're educate them on what's going on and ensuring that our evacuation routes and those things are necessary. Beyond that, coping with these disasters, we just need to pull together as a community and help each other out, as we've always done, whatever community is dealing with these issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Question goes next to Ms. LeBlanc.
So I think to prepare for the extreme weather events that we're experiencing now and the ones that we're going to experience in the future, there are lots of innovative things we can do and things we've already started doing. So for example, there's the roof program. It's a grant from the state to refurbish your roof after a storm to make it stronger, make it less of an entry point for damage. So I think we can expand on programs like that, use those to harden your home against not only wind damage, but against floods and fire. And so I think we can expand on those programs. And I think additionally, we can just go about hardening our homes and businesses generally, like giving people the resources they need, giving them the information that they need to be able to do that. I think we could harden our power infrastructure, bury our power lines, have neighborhood solar generation for when the power does go out, your neighborhood's not totally in the dark, and we can still recover in our homes and not be totally displaced. So I think there's lots of innovative ideas we can build on and things we haven't even tried yet. Thank you.
And next to you, Mr. Lopez.
I think we probably all agree that we're probably just one Katrina away. We've been very lucky, very fortunate. But things that we can do, I think we do need to get our insurance rates set up. Obviously, that's a big problem because we're going to need it. I also think we're going to have to address climate change, and that's not that easy to do. But unless we're willing to make that commitment and make a change, then we're going to have to suffer the consequences. Also, I think we need to, at this point, address the any kind of flooding problems that we could potentially have. I think we're going to have to rely on our government and the federal government to assess our situation and do what we can in order to prepare for the next Katrina that is eventually going to happen. It's not a matter of when or how, it's just a matter of time. Thank you.
Thank you. And last for this question, Mr. Shasta.
So I actually own a home improvement company, and what I tend to see is a lot of folks just aren't prepared. Some of the roofs are actually structurally not stable whatsoever, so you end up losing a lot of shingles, a whole lot of the synthetic felt. There's a program that the state government has called the fortified roofs, so you want to see about getting your roof fortified. This will really help because insurance rates are about to rise for us no matter what. I don't care what way you want to look at it. As well, what the legislation needs to do is we need to continue to invest in the coastal restoration project, which will then help buffer said winds and the approaching storm and obviously the heating of said storm. And then as well, for insurance purposes, we need to understand, a lot of folks don't know, we actually pay double what Texas pays in insurance. But that's a whole nother reason, and I don't have time to finish it. But I'd love to talk about it afterwards.
Well, that is so convenient.
Yes.
Because I promise I did not provide these questions in advance. But the next one is about these rising insurance costs. And this one we'll start with Mr. Martinez and then go down the line. We've seen the cost of insurance skyrocket in Louisiana, especially in the wake of Hurricanes Laura and Ida most recently. State legislation, which was passed a few years ago, which was intended to rein in the cost, has had very little effect. In fact, we've seen skyrocketing costs, not reduction. What steps, if any, should the state legislature take to address these rising insurance costs? Mr. Martinez, the question goes to you first.
You know, when I think about insurance from a larger scale, it really brings me right back to the family and the people in District 44. And, you know, I look at my insurance rates and how they've doubled and somewhat tripled at times, and we're left with one or two options within the state. That's not by anyone's doing on this diocese, and no, we don't have the individual answers to move that. What I can say is that, you know, one, I think it's important for us to improve our infrastructure and our roads and pass a gas tax. I know that this is tied to our inability to control the cost and really us as a community or a legislature giving that away to big business. My job is to protect the little guy and bring him to the table to ensure that we're addressing these issues in a meaningful way.
Thank you. Next up, Ms. LeBlanc.
So I think in relation to this question, we can go back to the previous one and saying like hardening our homes and businesses is a good way to drive down those costs, like preventing the damage before it starts. And then I think additionally, there are some rules that we need to change as far as like how we regulate insurance in the state. So to let insurance providers, for instance, provide policies in one part of the state but not the other one, which they cannot do now. And so that allows people who are in less risky areas to be insured, and those who live in more risky areas, if they have to use Louisiana citizens, for instance, they can, but it's less stress on that system. So I think it's a lot about hardening our infrastructure and then changing the rules so that we can have a market here that can work for people.
Thank you. Mr. LeBlanc.
Yes. When we talk about insurance, as far as car insurance, I'm going to just mention that because we were told that if we passed tort reform, our insurance rates would go down, and I don't think that's happened if you look at your insurance rates lately. As far as homeowners insurance, it's not that easy. I don't think it's going to be particularly a state issue that you can solve by yourself. Florida, California, they all have insurance problems. And one of the things we're going to have to do is we're going to have to get the nation as a whole to be willing to share the costs of insurance. because one state like Louisiana can't keep insurance people here, and we're going to need assistance from across the nation where we share those costs.
Thank you. Mr. Shessel?
So let me piggyback off of Doc real quick. So the reason why our insurance rates are high is based upon this tort reform, and that's something that's outside of this question. This is businesses, this is trial lawyers, this is just litigation in itself. That in turn turns into the hurtful factors that hurt me and you. So those hurtful factors are, I can call Geico tomorrow, and based upon my credit score, I can get a cheaper rate, but that doesn't benefit poor folks. And you have to address these factors. We also have, we need incentivized programs to get insurance companies to start writing the policies here. So there's a gentleman in the back, his name is James Thomas. James can vouch for this inside and out. Our bus drivers are having the hardest problem with insurance based upon there's only 2 companies that'll write for us, but we're still paying double. And between the 144 people that have the power, the 104 state reps, the 39 senators, plus the governor, we can actually change this. We just have to make it a priority.
Thank you. And last, to Mr. Lewis.
Yes, that's what I was talking about when I was talking about the first question about we in the coast. That's where it's real difficult to get these insurance. My son is an insurance agent in Texas, and he's always complaining that he writes people up for insurance for homeowners policy, then all of a sudden, a couple of months later, they drop the coverage. So this is a problem that they're having all over, not just in Louisiana, but I can speak for Louisiana because I'm a homeowner myself. I have several rental properties, and my the rent goes up because the insurance goes up. And we don't want to go up on your tenants because tenants, some of them are not say rich, poor, just they are tenants. So we want to make sure that we have equitable insurance rates for our customers, our tenants, and for us because we are homeowners, if you are a homeowner. Again, the problem that we have is that we need to make sure that the legislators and the representatives, the senators, and everyone get together and find a common ground to make these companies come to Louisiana and so we can have insurance for the homeowners. Thank you.
Thank you very much. For our next question, we will begin with Ms. LeBlanc. Louisiana is one of many states that has a part-time legislature, and the office for which you are running is considered a part-time job. In your opinion, would Louisianians be better served by a change in hours and compensation for legislators?
So for me personally, I feel like a change in compensation and hours for the legislature is not necessary at this time. The way I view it is that until the rest of the state gets a raise to their minimum wage, why do we deserve one, especially for part-time work? So I think that when we start producing results, then we can think more about how much we deserve to make. But in the meantime, it's just about kind of showing up and doing a job and getting it done and showing that it can be done right. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lublick?
When I think about this past session at the legislature, I'm very disappointed. If they can't do any better part-time, what makes you think they'll do it better full-time? So maybe we ought to clean up our act first and get some people in there that will make a difference. We've got to get people in there that are willing to put families and people first, not business. It's not how it works. You get people going, you get good jobs, you get compensation, then it makes business better and not the other way around.
Thank you. Mr. Chasson.
So that's a tough one because I had to pause in thinking about it. Part-time legislator versus full-time. I think in my mind I want to believe it's part-time, but I know for a fact that it's already full-time as is. It's full-time. I make $800 a month, $9,600 a year. Being a school board member, that comes out to $732 a month. My child broke it down one time. It's like $2.41 per hour. My kids do not walk with me in Walmart. A trip to go get pork chops is the most important thing that person has been waiting to do is talk to me. They don't realize you're the 10th person that's talked to me today. So I can't support a change in compensation when the minimum wage is still $7.25, because as a very famous person on this panel would say, you can't thrive off of $7.25 and you can't survive off of $7.25. So with that being said, guys, I can't support a change in compensation. You're just going to have to understand that it's already full-time and you're going to get what they give you.
Thank you. Mr. Lewis.
Thank you. Right now, as we speak, I am a councilman for District 1. I've been a councilman for the last 7 years, and it's considered part-time. I decided to run for that position, didn't worry about how much I would make, because I'm retired. I have nothing else to do but spend most of all my time as a state representative that I spend all my time as a city councilman. So as far as what the question is, as concerning turning it into a full-time job, no, it could be considered full-time, part-time for me because I'm retired. It doesn't matter if I work more hours or the same amount of hours. I will depend all my time working with my constituents of District 44. I have no problem because I'm retired. It's okay. I'm all right. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Martinez.
You know, I think about representation in District 44 and how we haven't been able to move the needle. And I think about who actually represents folks in Baton Rouge right now. Most of those folks are lawyers or folks that are very wealthy. They're not regular folks like me. The amount of pay that's for that position right now is extremely low. So it forbids regular people like me from actually running and representing communities like mine. It actually hurts us. So I would absolutely change the amount of pay for the position, because it is a full-time position, and at the same time, the only people that can actually participate and run are those that are independently wealthy or can manage a schedule that allows them to do so. Thank you.
Thank you very much. For our next question, we will begin with Mr. LeBleu. Criminal justice reform has been a major concern in Louisiana and many other states. Do you think that our state's efforts in this area have gone too far or not far enough?
When I think of criminal justice, I think more in terms of poverty. We have to, if we're going to do something about it, then we have to address the issue of poverty, because down the stream, poverty is going to lead to worse health care solutions, and also it's going to lead to crime. So it's not going to do us any good to build more prisons, and there's no need to get tough on crime. If we can't get smart about it and address the people that we need to address, if we can't at least address those issues that will bring people out of poverty, give them opportunities, then we're going to be right back where we started.
Thank you. Mr. Chasson, to you.
So, criminal justice reform. So, you're talking to a kid whose father from the ages 0 to 13 was incarcerated. It's tough to talk about, but what he did was he needed help for being on drugs. He didn't need to actually be in jail. Now, he committed a crime, but he had an actual problem. And I needed someone to actually help him versus the penalty and the crime that he was dealing with. Now, when it comes to that part, I mean, there's two forms of criminal justice reform. I mean, there's the judicial, and then there's I call it the regular side of it. I would say criminal justice reform, access to community college, the ability to break away from that recidivism, the fair results of crimes, the nonviolent, the rehabilitation, and just knowing that, like prison ministries, for instance, 90% of the folks that are in prison ministries, they do not go back to jail. So it's the programs that we have to start. or continue.
Thank you. Mr. Lewis.
Yes, reform. We need to take a step back and see where are the problems, what's causing the problem. A couple of days ago, we had a shooting in Jacksonville, Florida, and the first thing you hear is probably mental problems. So there's a lot of problems that we have now, the mental. We hear that all the time when people get shot or they do the shooting, the perpetrator, and the problem is illness. It can be on drugs, they can have alcohol problems, but there's a problem. So when we talk about reforming, we need to make sure that we do the right thing as far as making sure the person that's doing the perpetrator, who's doing that, what kind of problem they having. We talk about reform as far as guns. Right now, you can purchase a gun, you can have a good, clean record. In fact, the gentleman that did the shooting in Jacksonville had no prior record. So we need to find out what's causing all this. Education. We need to educate our own, educate the people to make sure that they do not make that mistake, because no one wants to kill someone or get killed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yes. Criminal justice reform has been a major concern in Louisiana and many other states. Do you think that our state's efforts in this area have gone too far or not far enough?
I don't think our efforts have gone far enough in regards to criminal justice reform. I think over the last 5 to 7 years, we've taken considerable efforts to move the needle, be it the unanimous jury, be it rights of applications, and also looking at housing rights, reentry programs, and actually getting the right to vote back to those previously incarcerated. All are important steps, I think, that we've taken as a state to reduce or remove the title of the most incarcerated state and place in the world. I believe that by electing me, I'll be a strong proponent to ensure that we continue to move the needle in criminal justice reform in our state. It's critical that we give folks back the dignity and the rights that they deserve, and we address a broken system that we know is broken from the top down. Thank you.
Thank you. And last up, Ms. LeBlanc.
So I think we have made some progress in this area, considering that Louisiana did used to be the most incarcerated state and the most incarcerated nation in the world. And I think we have moved down in that ranking. And I think we can continue to build on that, right? So provide people education, provide them opportunities so that they can live a life which is worth living and not feel like crime is kind of like the first kind of option that you have to try to have a life, to make money, to do whatever it is. So I think providing more opportunities is a big part of that. And additionally, when people are penalized, to make sure that we are trying to actively rehabilitate people and not just punishing them. So that way, when they do finish serving their time or whatever it is, that they can come out and be productive members of society, because we need everyone, all hands on deck in the state, to really move us forward. So I think focus on giving people opportunity in the first place, and then giving them a second chance and rehabilitating them when we can. Thank you.
Thank you. So for this question, we are back to our original order. Mr. Chasson, we'll begin with you. And this question is about redistricting. Some people call the redistricting process in Louisiana the fox guarding the henhouse. That means that the legislature is empowered to draw boundaries for itself, as well for the House of Representatives in Congress. In your opinion, would it be better for Louisianians to have our electoral districts drawn by the state legislature, by federal courts, or by an independent redistricting commission?
All three? That's a tough one, guys. The current situation that we're in, if we're given fair and equitable line drawing for our particular district, my current state rep, Vincent Pierre, would be able to serve again. Maybe his brother Sammy would like to run. Excuse me, uncle. I tend to think y'all are brothers. My apologies. It needs to happen, but who's to say what's fair and what's not? We all feel where we live. We know the drawing of those lines, they're not fair. But to say the state legislature, when I'm already a minority of a minority, to say a judicial review of it, I would hope would be a little bit more fair, but I've seen those processes batched as well. An independent commission depends on who's appointing said commission. That's a tough one, guys.
Thank you. Mr. Lewis.
As a city councilman, I went through redistricting. When I first was elected in 2015, going into 2016, I was a city parish councilman. For 4 years, I was a city parish councilman. Then all of a sudden, if you live in Lafayette, even though you live in the surrounding area, you heard about Fix the Charter. I didn't think it was fair because the district that I do represent got carved out, and just, you know, more people I started representing, which is no problem. I understand the people. But the people that I was representing before, I got used to represent them, so it made a big difference. And the problem with that is that it was only a few elected officials that made the drawings with a demographer. So I think if we do anything, it should be the elected officials and an independent person to do that. As far as just being the legislator, just them making it up, it would be okay because they know their constituents, they know their boundaries. But that sometimes is unfair because they're working amongst themselves. And I'm here to tell you that I've been through it. It's not the best thing that can happen. I think with the legislators and someone independent to do the boundaries. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Martinez.
Repeat the question, please.
Sure. On the topic of redistricting, is it your opinion, would it be better for Louisianians to have our electoral districts drawn by the state legislature, by federal courts, or by an independent redistricting commission?
Great question. And in my view, I believe it's a third option, the independent commission that would be the most broadest and I think the most transparent way to draw the lines. When you look at where we are now and where most states have been, is gerrymandering. The folks that are in office, they will never vote themselves out. They will never change lines that will hurt their chances of reelection. The folks that are making the decisions are really making the deals first for themselves. So I think an independent commission would be in the best position to position our state in the best place to get the representation that we know that we want to be fair and equitable. You can look at the case that we have now within the state for our own lines. We know that our state deserves another majority-minority district, yet we've had to go all the way to the Supreme Court to try to get that relief, and we still haven't gotten it yet. So I believe only a commission can provide that relief. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. LeBlanc.
So I absolutely 100% support independent redistricting. I think if we have to have a discussion about the federal courts doing that for us, then we've kind of failed as a state. And having the legislature do that for themselves provides them a really perverse incentive just to maintain their power. Like that's what a politician is going to do. So I think a nonpartisan, independent redistricting that draws the lines fairly, is transparent with all of us about how they're going to look, and allows us, you know, some redress if for some reason we don't agree, is the best way to do that, and to make sure representation is fair and is equitable. So yeah, 100% support independent redistricting.
Thank you. Mr. LeBlanc.
Well, I guess I would scratch the legislature right off the bat. I don't have a whole lot of confidence in them right now. They could get better in the future, so we'll give them the benefit of the doubt. I would go with the independent commission. I think that makes the most sense, but I'd also like to have the federal backup and federal approval just to make sure that they are independent, and if there's any confusion, any problems, at least we have a backup there that can help us solve that problem.
Thank you very much. Our next question will go first to Mr. Lewis. And I'm sorry, we've been talking about Texas and Florida a lot tonight, but here's yet another question about our neighbors. Some people say that residents and businesses are leaving Louisiana for Texas and for Florida because we have an income tax. Others argue that income taxes are fairer than sales taxes are because sales taxes hit those with lower incomes the hardest. Would you support changes to the income tax in Louisiana or even abolishing the income tax altogether? Mr. Lewis, the question to you.
Income tax, everyone that, if you work, they cutting taxes from you. When you're shopping, every time you purchase something, you pay sales tax. So it'd be kind of hard to get rid of the sales tax. The income tax. It'll be okay if you get rid of income tax, but again, if you are working, if you're not working, it benefits the people that's not working because they're not paying income tax anyway. But if you're shopping, you have to pay sales tax. And this is the way government works. This is how employees work. If you work for the government, you get paid through sales tax. So we have to be careful. If you turn around and get rid of the income tax, if you don't work, it's okay. And there's a lot of people that's not working. So someone would have to support the bases like in Texas. My son lives in Texas, and they do not pay income tax. But they're thriving. It's a good economy. If you live in neighborhoods, you have everything. You don't have to leave. Once you get home, you don't have to leave. So it's kind of hard to say that, but I believe in the way we're working it now, sales tax and income tax. I think that's working for us right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Martinez.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Sure. In your, let me begin at the beginning. Some people say that residents and businesses are leaving Louisiana for Texas and Florida because we have an income tax. Others argue that income taxes are fairer than sales taxes because sales taxes hit those with lower incomes the hardest. Would you support changes to the income tax in Louisiana or even abolishing the income tax altogether?
Fair question. I believe it's definitely worth a review to see exactly what's the best practice for our state. For me personally, I think that we would and do need changes to our tax code in our state. When I think about the residents in District 44, I know that the sales tax, as you mentioned, disproportionately affects us the most. So any effort that we can move the needle in our state to help those that need it the most, while also ensuring that we are providing that tax base from our large businesses and those that have been getting those breaks, I think would be a great relief. So I'm all for supporting restructuring our state tax. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. LeBlanc.
So I actually do support eventually phasing out the income tax as much as we can. I think we can do that, and we also have to recognize that it's not a thing that we can do overnight, that it will be a process. And to that end, we're also not getting revenue. So first off, we need revenue to operate the government. Like, that's a given. So just because we're not paying income taxes, we still need the money. And so we have to get the revenue from places where we've been giving it away at this point. So to end some of those corporate tax breaks, to allow local governments to enforce their own taxes, to collect property taxes, which they're not doing right now, to have a progressive sales tax, so that way it is more fair to people at the lower end of an income scale versus the higher end. So I think it's something that we definitely can do, and it's going to require us to be smart about how we organize every other tax that we collect. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. LeBlanc.
Well, I think we have an inadequate tax system with too many loopholes. We have a regressive tax system where the poor people pay a higher percentage of their income and taxes than the rich. So that's very unfair. I think we need to level the playing field. I think we need to make sure that corporations are paying their fair share. And I think we need to go more into a progressive tax system where the rich will pay their fair share and the lower incomes don't pay as much.
Thank you. And to you, Mr. Shaskin.
So businesses leaving, I'd actually be in favor of restructuring it. I understand what's going on in Texas. where folks don't have to suffer, then they're more attractive. But that's also not the reason why businesses and people are leaving. They're leaving because of the crime levels, and they're leaving because of the individual incentives. So the only way you can actually address the income tax situation, you have to have a plan, and the plan will have to be, how do you replace those local state collections, because our local resources and our local revenue is based upon said collection. So I do want to be as competitive as possible with the other states. I don't want to lose out to anyone, hence the reason for programs like ITIP, the incentivized program. There's too many factors that factor into this, and it's going to take a massive effort to figure that one out.
Thank you. For our next question, it will go to Mr. Martinez first. The Constitution of Louisiana is one of the lengthiest and the most complicated among all American states. What kinds of changes to our state constitution would you support?
Well, first, I would support taking slavery out of our Constitution and any reference to the said word or action. I would also support restructuring our Constitution to ensure that we can support families and children, and take some of those breaks that our Constitution and things that we've given away throughout the years back to the people as they deserve, and not big business. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. LeBlanc.
So I think that we can look at the Constitution of 1868, our post-Reconstruction or post-Civil War Reconstruction Constitution, which is a wonderful document, very simple, very fair, and literally we could reinstitute that with changes to very few words and have a much better document than what we have today. So I think we already have a really good model for what we could do. And that being said, I think I read on someone's website who was running maybe in 46 about redrawing the Constitution and how we could only do that under a Republican governor, for instance, which I found very shocking, because I think kind of what we need to focus on is that when we're drawing a Constitution for a state, that should be a nonpartisan issue. It needs to represent everybody, not just one party or the other. So I think that whatever we do, we need to include the widest number of voices and the most diverse opinions, so we can all make a place that we can all live and be proud of and thrive in. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. LeBlanc.
Yeah, I get a little bit confused with the length of our Constitution. I don't have a good answer at this point. I just know it's every other election we're adding to the Constitution or taking away whatever they're doing. I do think we need a commission to step back and reevaluate it. Exactly what we do, I don't have the answer, but I do think we need an independent commission, nonpartisan, to evaluate it and make suggestions. And from there, I think we can move forward.
Thank you. Mr. Chasson.
I'm still writing my answer. I was going to make a joke with you and ask you, can you repeat the question?
Yes. The Constitution of Louisiana.
No, I'm joking. I'm still trying to formulate an answer. Let me be honest with you about this one. I think what you want out of a state rep is to be honest. I don't have a clear answer on this one. That's such a broad question. I got to be honest with myself. Only thing I can think of is, and I had to write it down, just fiscal changes that would allow local government more control. And that can only be accomplished with a committee of bipartisan citizens and legislators. But I got to be honest. I'm going to need to dive deeper on that question, because it's a hard question.
Thank you.
Yes, this is a question that, but again, my opinion would be that we deal with the Napoleon Law in Louisiana. That's a different law than any other state in the United States, the Napoleon Law. That started way back when. I don't remember the time when it started because I'm not an attorney. But I know every time there's an issue in Louisiana, there's another issue because of the way the law is. The law is very difficult in Louisiana. And I know they have some attorneys out here that's sitting down in the audience, and I think they would agree that the Napoleon law is different than any other law in Louisiana. To make changes, that's something that we would have to deal with the attorneys, because they are the one that's practicing law in Louisiana. I'm not a lawyer. None of, well, maybe they have a panel on here that's a lawyer, but again, we need to have someone study that, study it very much in detail to decide how and if we need to change like the other states. Thank you.
Thank you. For our next question, it will go first to Ms. LeBlanc. What would the first year look like for you in the state legislature? What are your top priorities? What are you looking to accomplish in year one?
Sure. So I think for me, my top 3 priorities are making sure that there's economic opportunity for everybody. So doing things like reining in the ITEP system, like I think someone already mentioned, and also raising the earned income tax credit for working families. I think we want to focus on community-centered development. So in District 45 especially, asking my neighbors and the residents, like, okay, what is it we need? What are we missing? And then working with the city and the state to get those things done. And then thirdly, I think having a representative, responsive representative, and also be very inclusive. So to include my neighbors, the residents, my constituents in all decision making, and make sure that we're always clear about what's going on in Baton Rouge and how it's going to affect us, and making sure everyone can provide their input. So just being very transparent, very open, very available, and just focusing on some root issues first.
Thank you. Mr. Loebler.
The first thing I'd like to do is restore some of the freedoms that were taken away to some of our citizens, women's rights, children's rights, parents' rights. That needs to be put back in place. The next thing I would do is I'd want to focus on the safety of our kids and our neighborhoods, because I think that's a concern of everybody. I'd also want to improve our educational system. I don't like the way that teachers took a slap in the face with not getting their raise. I'm very unhappy about that. We've got to do something about the insurance rates, and we've got to get some good paying union jobs that'll be geared towards a new vision of Louisiana, which is green energy.
Thank you very much. Mr. Shassel.
So my top priorities would be crime, the fair results of crime, crime levels, jobs and infrastructure, keeping jobs, trying to raise the minimum wage, even though you got to be honest, raising the minimum wage is not going to make it out of committee. You got to be honest with yourself. With the same jobs and infrastructure, that would be beating the pavement and creating jobs, setting policy to facilitate bringing new businesses. The new businesses create not just jobs, but create new good-paying jobs. Working with our higher ed institutions, as well K-12 education, to invite new businesses for a strong workforce. Don't overtax businesses, but make it friendlier. And then as well, healthcare, and just continuing of the Medicaid expansion, realizing that if they cut the Medicaid expansion, the infrastructure of our hospitals have vehemently made it a point to include it in their budget. So if you cut it, you're going to destroy our hospital systems.
Thank you. Mr. Lewis.
Thank you. A few things that I would love to work on. I'm a retiree. I retired from the school board. I don't know anyone that's retired from a state job, there's that what we call a windfall. If you're familiar with that, a windfall is that if you work Social Security, you paid into the Social Security, and you have a retirement job from a state, the fire department, police department, anywhere from the state, you cannot collect your full benefits on Social Security. You only can get half of your Social Security. So the next one I want to work on is not increasing, but giving retirees from the state, the fire department, give them a raise. I've been retired for 8 years, and I never received a 1 cent raise. And they have some people that's retired. I spoke to a fireman that he'd been retired for 22 years. He received only 1 raise in 22 years. So the state employees not getting a raise. And some of the Social Security people that's getting benefit not getting a raise. So that's two of the things, main things I like to work on once I get in Baton Rouge, the windfall and also retirees from the state to make sure they get raises. And that's something that can happen. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Martinez.
My first year will accomplish three things: economic development, crime and gun violence, and supporting the education community. When I look out and I drive through District 44, we've seen the big boxes leave. We've seen corporations leap over us. We've seen the South Side grow. And we've seen very little development or growth or opportunities on the North Side. My number one focus will be bringing jobs and opportunities back to the North Side of Lafayette, and doing that in a major way. We got to get a handle of the guns and the crime and deal with that in a serious way. So we need to provide support to our communities, to our mental health professionals, to law enforcement, and support our education community, knowing that through that mechanism we'll be able to change lives in a serious way. Thank you.
Thank you. We are almost at the conclusion of our event, and I want to ask all of our candidates to make a brief closing statement up to 1 minute, and we're going to go in the reverse order that we had them introduce themselves. So Mr. Blue, we'll start with you and then work back towards me.
I'm running because I want to give people a choice. You can keep the status quo. You can keep trickle-down economics. You can get your mallet, your square peg, and try to pound it in that round hole, but it's not going to go in. We can continue to give tax cuts to the richest people and their wealthy donors and corporations. We can let our government continue to discriminate against the citizens, especially the most vulnerable in our state. And we can let the government or the legislature impose their religious beliefs and ideologies on the citizens. Or the other option is we can, for change, invest in people, invest in communities, invest in families. We can have diversity and include everyone. We can restore our freedoms. We can take back our democracy. And we can create opportunities for the kids of this state so they'll stay here.
Thank you. Ms. LeBlanc.
So first, thank you guys for hosting this. Thank the library for having us. Thank you all for coming and for your time and attention. I'm running because I want to build on the progress that we've already made as a city and continue to make this. Your attention, please. Oh, no. Okay. Oh, gosh. Okay, sorry. To build on the progress we already made and to make Lafayette into Louisiana's best city. So I really hope that you will work with me as neighbors and as partners on the project to revitalize Lafayette or continue to revitalize Lafayette and really remake Louisiana. So on October 14th, please vote Jupiter for Lafayette. And yeah, I know we had a short time to discuss things here, so I'm probably going to loiter around for as long as I can to answer some more questions if y'all have any. So again, thank you for being engaged and thank you for being here.
Again, thank the League of Women Voters Lafayette, thank the library, and thank you for coming out. I really enjoyed this brief forum or discussion. There's really much more we need to talk about. We need a debate. So first I want to challenge my opponents to a debate, a real debate, so we can really get to the issues. But more importantly, you know, I want you guys to know that this is a real election, a serious election, and I want you to take it very seriously. Ask the questions that you need to ask. At the end of the day, I'm certain that you'll find me as the best candidate to represent you in Baton Rouge for the next 4 years. I promise you that I'll do the best job that I can, put my skill set, also my passion to service for you. Again, I'm not running against these gentlemen. I'm running for you, and I'm running to represent you on October 14th. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lewis.
Thank you, and thank you guys for inviting us. Thanks to all the audience and the League of Women. Right now, I am a city councilman. I am a legislator. I do exactly what a Representative Vincent Pierre does. when he passed something, they call it a bill. In Lafayette, the city councilman, what we do, we call it a ordinance or a resolution. I do exactly what they do. So I'm the most likely candidate to occupy the seat as a state representative. Okay? Then here I am speaking to you guys and asking you guys for your support. As your state representative, District 44, I promise to continue serving you with integrity, honesty, and transparency. I expect, and I am very excited about serving you as your state representative of District 44. Again, I'm Patrick Pat Lewis, Proven Leadership, number 73 on the ballot. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Schessel.
So what folks want to know what are the basic needs that a state rep can help you. What are the basic needs that a state rep can provide you? So just notes that I have, I was writing down, trying to figure out, man, what does a state rep do? I know what Vincent does. I know what Terry Landry did. So the basic needs are safety, good schools, quality education. I'm not talking about infrastructure. I'm talking about the actual education. Jobs available, solid health care and hospitals, and the roads, and the funding that all makes that turn. So I just want to help guys. All three of these guys would be a great choice, honestly. They're all three of them nice. They're all two of the other two guys. We're the nicest folks in the world. We all just want to help. It's not rocket science. It's just common sense. And inevitably, I can't help it. I got to answer my friend. A debate, I'd be more than happy to be up to it. It's just a civilized argument, and I'm really good at arguing. Thank you, guys.
Thank you all. On behalf of the League of Women Voters of Lafayette, I certainly hope that you all feel like you are in a better position to make an informed choice for either District 44 or 45. The election is on Saturday, October 14th. That is in the middle of Festivals Acadiennes and Creole. So please remember, you also have the option to early vote September 30th through October 7th. There are 3 locations where you can early vote: downtown at the Parish Government Building, down towards Youngsville at the East Regional Library, and also at the Martin Luther King Jr. Rec Center. So any of those are options. We also, in addition to these forums, we have our Vote for 1-1 guide, which you can learn more about the candidates and the positions they've taken. And we have 6 more candidate forums upcoming over the next 4 weeks, so lots of opportunities to get informed. Thank you so much for our timekeeper, Mrs. Deborah Ame, for keeping these guys honest, for our partners here with the main library, especially for our folks with AOC Community Media for providing the recording and the live streaming option, and especially, finally off the hot seat, to our candidates for an excellent performance tonight. Thank you so much.